Updates on the Good Pillow Project by David Hogg. Piers Morgan is still in the news regarding his comments last week on the British monarchy, and Tucker Carlson gets attacked for his comments regarding females in the military. This is your March 15th Not So News update. Please like and subscribe if you're looking for daily news content, and let's dive on in. Starting us off with Fox Sports, we have Drew Brees retires from the NFL after a stellar career with the Saints and Chargers. Drew Brees announced his retirement from the NFL on Sunday. He made an announcement on his Instagram 15 years to the day he signed with the New Orleans Saints. After 20 years as a player in the NFL and 15 years as a Saints, it's time I retire from the game of football. Each day I poured my heart and soul into being a quarterback till the very end. I exhausted myself to give everything I had to the Saints organization, my team, and a great city in New Orleans. We shared some amazing moments together, many of which are emblazoned in our hearts and minds and will forever be a part of us. You have molded me, strengthened me, inspired me, and given me a lifetime of memories. My goal for the last 15 years was striving to give you everything you had given to me and more, he wrote in the post. I'm only retiring from playing football. I'm not retiring from New Orleans. This is not a goodbye, rather a new beginning. Now my real life's works begin. Drew Brees was notably one of the most well-known individuals in the NFL. Obviously, a lot of individuals are going to be saddened to see him leave, specifically those in New Orleans, but it's great to see one of these older players retiring. Maybe Tom Brady will get the memo that the other boomers are leaving the league. Ted Cruz responded to some attacks that involved Tucker Carlson with comments when it came to the United States Marine Corps and its response to Tucker Carlson's comments that pregnant individuals, specifically women, should probably not be serving. Ted Cruz wrote the following. Secretary Austin, the United States military subordination to civilian governance, including to the American people for whom by the government is selected, is at the core of our republic and its institutions. That structure is woven into our military at every level, including Department of Defense Directive 1344.10, which broadly forbids military service members from engaging in their official capacities in any activities that associate the DoD with any partisan political campaign or election candidate, cause, or issue. Another long-standing norm aimed at preserving civilian governance is involved restriction and prohibitions against recent service members serving in certain civilian capacities, including the position of Secretary of Defense. The United States granted its advice and consent for you to become Secretary despite your recent military service, and I voted for you as well on the basis of your stated commitments to preserving that governance. I am deeply troubled that the commitments you made and the military's broader obligation to avoid political endorsements and controversy are being systemically undermined for the sake of left-wing ideology and political expediency. The last week has witnessed the Pentagon mobilize systemic public attacks against television host Tucker Carlson, and substance-tone political resonance are inexplicably inappropriate. The campaign was launched in response to criticisms by Carlson that linked gender-based reforms in the military, which are being justified using the language of social justice, with widely recognized vulnerabilities and erosions in the military's warfighting capabilities, including and especially in the context of great power competition. Whenever one thinks of the merits of the argument, and I believe there is much to be said against the use of military for social experimentation, including for those reasons that are broadly held concerns that have been the fodder of political controversy and debate for decades. Instead of allowing that debate to take course in public among American citizens and their elected leaders, military officials over the last week have repeatedly launched attack on Carlson, including through official DoD platforms and accounts and while in uniform. The campaign has alternated between being ostensibly childish and simply outrageous. Multiple military leaders have tweeted video of themselves while in uniform as they attack Carlson, including the command senior enlisted leaders of the U.S. Space Command, the Sergeant Major of Army, the Commanding General of the U.S. Army Maneuver Center of Excellence, and the Commanding Officer of the Marine Expeditionary Force Information Group. Throughout this campaign, military leaders have suggested and insinuated that it is out of bounds for civilians to criticize the military unless they've served. This spectacle risks politicizing the military after several centuries of efforts to keep military officials out of domestic affairs, undermining civil-military relations by having the military take a side in a contentious cultural dispute, and the perception that military leaders are happily weaponizing the institution against political critics of the sitting administration. This kind of behavior, while perhaps typical in the military-controlled third-world country, is completely unacceptable in the United States of America. Furthermore, these actions run the risk of creating a culture of contempt for our country's civilian leadership within the enlisted ranks and among junior officers, which will be corrosive to the good order and discipline of the military. At times, the campaign has been conducted in a way that is far beneath the dignity of the United States military. The official website of the Defense Department cataloged a statement by Pentagon Press Secretary John F. Kirby under the headline, "Press Secretary Smites Fox Host that dissed diversity in U.S. military," and declared Carlson had issued insults to the entire U.S. military. MEF constitutes a third of the Marine Corps warfighting capability, and so MEFIG is the public-facing public affairs unit for the entirety of the east-facing combat force for Marines. The official Twitter account posted absurd statements insulting Carlson, which included criticizing Carlson's age, and then told another private citizen who responded to that attack to come back when you've served and been pregnant. I cannot imagine how the above behavior can be explained, and I'm deeply concerned for what it portends for the future that you and President Biden intend to move the military. I therefore request that the Commandant of the Marine Corps meet with me in person to discuss these issues. I also request an official response from the department and implementation of a policy that insulates other units from being similarly mobilized against the speech of American citizens or in the service of left-wing political causes. Regards, Ted Cruz. In a similar story, the International Women's Media Foundation also condemned an attack against Taylor Lorenz coming from Tucker Carlson. Their statement was, "The IWMF MF is appalled by the relentless online smear campaign against New York Times technology and internet culture reporter Taylor Lorenz. After tweeting about her experience with online violence against women on International Women's Day, Lorenz was subject to virulent online attacks exacerbated by repeated coverage by Fox News. Tucker Carlson. It is not exaggeration to say that harassment and smear campaign that I have endured over the past years has destroyed my life. No one should have to go through this." Lorenz tweeted on March 9th, "Research shows these attacks can move online through doxing, stalking, and threats." Carlson's commentary is a deliberate, deeply dangerous effort to mobilize harassment towards Lorenz. Coordinated attacks against women journalists by major news networks not only threaten a journalist's livelihood, but her life itself. Online violence is real violence with real consequences. Lorenz is a legitimate journalist whose work should be applauded, not attacked. Women journalists must be able to do their jobs without fear for their lives. We stand with Lorenz and call for an immediate end to this violent behavior. Coming from the Pentagon, senior members at the military call out Tucker Carlson for mocking women serving in armed forces. His words don't reflect our values. This was the original rebuke reported by CNN. In an extraordinary rebuke, the Pentagon and several senior members of the United States military called out Fox News host Tucker Carlson on Thursday for a sexist segment in which he mocked women serving in the armed forces. Carlson, who effectively the face of Fox and hosts the top news on right-wing's channel, ridiculed President Joe Biden Tuesday for saying that the U.S. military had created uniforms to fit women properly, created maternity flight suits for those who are pregnant, and updated requirements for hairstyles. So we've got new hairstyles and maternity flight suits, Carlson snarked. Pregnant women are going to fight our wars. It's a mockery of the U.S. military. Carlson's comments have prompted severe backlash from some of the most senior members of the U.S. military who took to Twitter Wednesday and Thursday to call out Carlson for what they described as harmful and divisive rhetoric. I think long story short on this story is, one, we're learning that pregnant women are now being put at the front lines, which does seem like a brand new policy. And secondly, I think it's very strange to have the United States military ridiculing public individuals or even personal individuals. It seemed rather fascist, rather militaristic, and very scary. Coming from PJ Media, David Hogg Pillows Company seems to have already failed. If you remember, David Hogg announced that he was going to create a left-wing version of My Pillow to compete with the right-wing company who was a proud supporter of Trump. However, being reported, well, so much for that. Good Pillow's website featuring their $200 2-hour logo doesn't appear to have been changed in a long time, and Good Pillow's Twitter account hasn't posted a tweet in over a month. And last week posted February 10th reported that the company is trying to finalize a list of charity partners we'll be launching with, and asked followers to list any organizations they should support. Since then, silence. But there's more to the sad story. Newsweek's gloating article made the mistake of noting that a search of the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office database does not reveal any new company being registered under the name Good Pillow or a variant. Well, as PJ Glasnick at Newsmasters noted, anybody reading the article would be alerted to the fact that Hogg and Partner had not even bothered to register the name of the company. Therefore, somebody who wanted to go ahead and register that name, thus depriving Hogg of its use unless he paid dearly for it. Well, it appears someone did. A subsequent search of the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office database reveals that on February 11th, a day after the heads up provided by Newsweek, Good Pillow was indeed registered by a Mr. Robert Holland of North Carolina. Congratulations, Bob. You might be the only person who ends up making money from Good Pillow. Talk about an epic fail. From Daily Caller, we have the New York vaccine czar gauged support for Cuomo after sexual misconduct allegations. The head of the New York vaccine rollout reportedly called county executives to see how much they supported Democratic New York Governor Andrew Cuomo in the wake of multiple sexual misconduct allegations. Larry Schwartz, who served as secretary to the governor and as board member on the Metro Transit Authority, called multiple county executives to determine their level of support for the embattled Cuomo, he admitted to the Washington Post. One county executive filed an ethics complaint over the call, but Schwartz denies wrongdoing. At best, it was inappropriate. At worst, it was clearly over the ethical lines, said the Democratic official who filed the complaint. The official told the Washington Post that he preferred to remain anonymous due to Cuomo's record for retaliating against political opponents. Cuomo threatened to destroy Democratic Queens Assemblyman Ron Kim after he accused Cuomo of obstructing justice over the governor's cover-up of COVID-19 nursing home deaths. Schwartz admitted making the call to the Post, but denied wrongdoing. This is just another attack in Andrew Cuomo, and it'll be interesting to see where it goes. From Axios, a new report urges reopening of schools. In it, they note some of the benefits to opening up the schools during the end times of COVID. Any benefits to closing schools are far outweighed by the grave risk to children from remote-only schooling, risks that intensify the longer it continues, the report says. Harm includes academic loss so severe it could set child back for life, and mental health problems related to loneliness and isolation. There are severe hardships on parents, mothers in particular, about 2 million of whom have left the workforce to care for their kids as part of remote learning. School are not super spreads, observed a report written by John P. Bailey, a former deputy police director at the Department of Commerce. They also look into a study of the Chicago Archdiocese schools, which reopened in the fall. The Archdiocese was able to reopen with requirements for masking, physical distancing, and daily temperature and symptom checks. The estimated COVID attack rate among students in Archdiocese were 0.2%, which is about half of the 0.4% rate for all Chicago children. And the Archdiocese students obviously were able to make academic gains and test score gains, while other students were either remaining constant or, more than likely falling behind as they were not going to class. And then what can we conclude from this? Obviously, there needs to be a continual push for schools to be reopened in the time of COVID, even as if we don't have vaccines fully rolled out specifically for kids. We have gotten to a point where significant vaccines have been spread to those who are in the most vulnerable categories, and there has been little evidence that the spread among children is worse than to the general population, and we are doing harm to the future of this country by not opening. Piers Morgan is in a €10 million bidding war after his exit from Good Morning Britain. There's talk that he could possibly be moving back to the United States. He has been publicly courted by both startup news services GB News and news channels in America. A TV source told The Mirror he has millions of pounds worth of offers. He turned GMB into ratings hits. It seems everything he touches turns to gold. People love his honesty. Even that people don't like him, they can't help but be interested in what he says. Some of the offers have hit the €10 million mark, and seems he may be able to land exactly what he wants. This obviously comes after he expressed his distrust in Meghan Markle, And it'll be interesting to see where he lands. Obviously, he has some history in the States after his America's Got Talent experiences, as well as other, celebrity experiences. I don't know if his ties to Trump with the Celebrity Apprentice will make him as welcomed back in the States, but obviously, if he's accepted in the British community, I think he wouldn't find more than a home in the American community. Finally, thought the 2020 elections were over, Pelosi swings the door open to unseating a Republican member. This comes from Fox News. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi swung the door open to possibly unseating a current Republican member and replacing her with a Democrat. The House sworn representative Marionette Millers-Meeks, a Republican from Iowa, as a winner in Iowa's 2nd Congressional District when the new Congress began on January 3rd. Millers-Meeks eked out a 6-vote win over Democratic Rita Hart, flipping a seat from blue to red. After recounts, the Iowa election officials certified Millers-Meeks as the winner. Hart appealed to the House Administration Committee to investigate the matter. Article 1, Section 5 of the Constitution says the House and Senate shall be the judge of elections, returns, and qualifications of its own members. The panel took up the case. Millers-Meeks asked the committee to dismiss Hart's request this week. The committee denied that entreaty and is continuing the investigation. It's unclear where this may go. Some thought the House could battle on January 3rd over seating Millers-Meeks or Hart, but the House Administration Committee met this week to consider a request by Millers-Meeks to end Hart's appeal. So I asked Pelosi if she can conceive of a scenario where the House would nullify the election of a member in the middle of a Congress and replace him with someone else. Paragraph states, could you see a scenario depending on where they find the probe of unseating of the current member and seating Rita Hart? Pelosi responded with, Chad is always the hypothetical. Could you see a scenario? The paragraph responded that would be a pretty bold move. Pelosi said, yes, but there could be a scenario to that extent. Despite the Constitution provisional, it's nearly unheard of to remove a member midstream. The irony isn't lost on Republicans. They argue Democrats insist on following state election certifications when it came to the Electoral College and the presidency, but with Millers-Meeks and Hart, Democrats may be willing to override local election officials when it benefits their side. And this is your March 15th Not So News update. Once again, please like and subscribe if you're looking for daily news content.